Hey, what's up? So I'm in bed. I'm in bed because excuse me. I actually am not feeling the best, but I like research and I like looking over things. And so I dozed off for a little bit, woke back up, but I'm I'm here, sorry. I'm here because I was reviewing something and it made me do some research. And I think a lot about how we try to act like racism is over. If black people don't have anything, it's simply their fault. That's it. The wealth disparity in our country between black people and white people is over. Every chance that a white person has, a black person has. Every chance that any other ethnicity has, black people have. That's how people act. I want to break something down. And it's sad because I feel like things have to be broken down like this for people to truly understand it, to understand the principle behind things. The wealthiest person in the world has a net worth of $113 billion. So $113 billion is this person's net worth. The wealthiest black person in the world, net worth is $10.5 billion. 10.5. So that's a very big difference between white and black. I use white and black because that's like the top. The top, when it comes to money and power, is white. And then there's a range of other ethnicities, and the bottom, as far as when it comes to power and money, is black people. That's just how it is. I'm not trying to create no excuses. I'm not trying to make nothing. I'm not trying to do anything but just state how it is. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's how it is. Now, the wealthiest black person in America, because I think this is very important. The wealthiest black person in America is worth $2.5 billion. The wealthiest white person in America, you guessed it, it's the wealthiest person in the world. They're worth $113 billion. So, the wealthiest black person in the world is worth $2.5 billion. So, when you look at black people and we talk about wealth, so the wealthiest black person in America is at $2.5 billion. So if you have a graph and $2.5 billion is the top, as you go down the graph to the least wealthiest, it's going to be pretty low compared to the least wealthiest on the white people, because the wealthiest white person is worth $113 billion. Just to put that into perspective, understand the difference. Well, so that means the wealthiest white person in America can buy. I'm trying to say this in the right way because I want to make it look like I'm trying. So the wealthiest black person in America's worth is, okay, the wealthiest white person in America is about 55 times wealthier than the wealthiest black person in America. So that means if we really, really paid attention, like if we could find the least wealthiest white person in America, and I can't say this because we don't know who that is, but I can say with the information that I have that is very possible, the least wealthiest white person in America is still 50 times more wealthy than the least wealthiest black person in America. Like, the wealth disparity is so ridiculous. And I say it's ridiculous with white and black people because black people could have been on top. Because when we talk about the black community, for some reason, we always start in the 70s or the 80s when we look at the issues that are plaguing the black community, and we act like our black youth are the worst youth in the world. We act like black people are the most unhealthiest people and the least financially responsible, and it's possibly true. My issue with many that point that out is They never actually delve into the root and the causes of all of this. They never want to go into why, how this came, or how. I said in a post before, and I've always said this. Me personally, I'm always more concerned with the how and the why rather than the who and the what. Not saying the who and the what doesn't matter, but the how and the why matters more. Yes, I see he has a lot of money, and you're telling me that I should look at him and use that as a blueprint for me to want to get more money. But my question is, how does he have that money, and why does he have that money? That's important. But yeah, I just wanted to come on and say, like, we really need to pay attention to the how and the why. People are not just broke just because people are financially illiterate or things like that. I mean, because I'm not saying that people aren't in our community. What I'm saying is there are people who are financially illiterate and they're still getting money, because there are opportunities offered to others that are not offered to us. Even those of us who actually are doing pretty well, there's so much more that we can do, but we're held to that glass ceiling. It's still there, the glass ceiling. I think the wealthiest black person in America is Oprah, and I think it really speaks too, because that also goes into how the black man has been emasculated to the point where even black women agree with a lot of things that emasculate black men. And I explained to a friend of mine, I have a lot of female friends. That's mostly what I associate with. I have some male friends, but mostly females. And I try to explain to them the other side of what, because we try to push this whole black women have it worse than black men, and black women, all this different stuff where it's actually not true, a lot of things. Not saying that black women don't go through things, but though, I'll just say those who are about white supremacy, they were very much, they could live with seeing a black woman in power more than they can live with seeing a black man in power. They don't want to see none of us doing good, but they could deal with a black woman doing good over a black man doing good, and they'll make sure that stays in effect. And the reason being is because it kills two birds with one stone. The first thing is, no matter how much we believe, I believe black women are so beautiful, powerful, all of that, blah, blah, blah. In any group, the male species, if you take away their strength, that group eventually dies away. It eventually disappears. Because that group, that's just how it is. It's not a shot at women or anything. I wouldn't do that. But that's just how it is. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this separates that group of people, because the more that women become better at getting money and getting power and things like that, the more they start looking at men as if the men in that culture are ridiculous, the bottom of the barrel, no good, and these ideas that have been pressed down, these ideas that have been pressed around black men for centuries, now they're starting to be perpetuated, not just by those who are racist or white supremacists, but also the black woman. It's so much that goes into this. I was just doing research, and it's like when you read, that's why I do believe it's important for everybody to study, because when you study, you'll see how everything is connected. Because we'll focus on the violence in our community, and we'll make that a solitary issue. Then we'll focus on the lack of wealth in our community. We'll make that a separate issue. Then we'll focus on sickness in our community, and we'll make that a separate issue. And then we'll focus on ownership, business, entrepreneurship in our community. And what we never do is we never connect the dots and see how everything is connected and affects everything else. We hardly, and when I say we, I'm talking about the people, because we have a lot of social media pages. I'm going to give you this information. Black ownership, black wealth, black couples, black, and all that stuff. And it's cute. It's fine, for show. But I look at these pages because I go on them to try to get information. I get some information every now and then. But mostly what I see is people who have probably found out something that most black people don't know, and they know it's not taught in a community. And now they're trying to capitalize, just like everybody else in the country tried to capitalize off of the ignorance of black people. I don't really see anybody offering information or real information or actually telling people, hey, contact me, let me see where you at, and I'll tell you where you at, how you can start doing what you do. No, it's not like that, because it takes, and I'm not faulting those people, because it takes so much more to get out of the predicaments we in. We need to understand that this where we are right now in 2020, this has been in the making for 400 years. It's been in the making for 400 years. It didn't stop in the 1860s when slavery was abolished. It didn't stop. No. It actually the push to break down the psyche and the emotions of the black people, it increased. It increased. I'm telling you, if you guys look at the timelines of different things, like I was looking recently, and it was because I was pushed to do this by watching, I don't know if many of you have seen Bowling for Columbine, a documentary by Mark Moore, but he has a cartoon in there where he's explaining when guns became so important in America. And it's very much strongly linked to slavery, the slave uprisings. And from there, after slavery is abolished, the fear that the slaves were going to retaliate and things like that. So I started doing research on like the different types of firearms, like the Colt, the revolver, and things like that. And I realized when that was created, and then when slavery was abolished, it just baffles me how everything is. I shouldn't be baffled, but it still baffles me. What baffles me is how everything is so connected, but many who try to give information in the black community never make these correlations. One man I've seen made certain correlations, and it's a book called Brainwashed, Destroying the Myth of Black Inferiority, by Tom Burrell. I encourage everybody to read that, whether you're black or whatever, because he breaks down many of the issues in the black community, and he shows the root, how it grew, and then provides solutions. And it's a beautiful book. It's just a beautiful book. I read this book maybe 10 years ago, and this book broke me down basically to tears, because I saw myself in a lot of these things. But the crying wasn't because I did it. The crying was because I did it because of ignorance, and not ignorance that I chose to have, but ignorance that if I had never read that book and that man had never wrote that book, I probably would still have been in it, you know. But yeah, I just came on because I think we need to really start. I pointed all of that out to say we need to start seeing our issues in the black community. I'm not mad at looking at it from the inside out, but we also need to start looking at it from the outside in. Because when we're in the inside out, we can become, think about it, if you know a house is ridiculous and it stinks and all of this, you know, the more you're just standing in the stink, the more subjective your critique of how to get the house from being like it is, how subjective it gets. Because now you're allowing your emotions that are being driven up by the smells and things like that. But when you stand outside and you get some fresh air, now you could think more objectively. And now you're not persecuting the people, because let's just say the house is like it is because these people didn't know, or they didn't have the resources to make sure it didn't get like this, or things like that. So now you're not focusing on the who, you're focusing on the what. I just see so many wealthy black people, or black people that's doing good health-wise. The way they approach other black people who aren't doing it is so accusatory and demeaning and belittling. And it upsets me. Not because I'm fat or broke. It upsets me because how can you help someone that you look at as beneath you? How could you help someone that you demean or belittle? You can't. You can't efficiently and effectively help that person. So the only way for you to get that out of your head, first, is to determine if you're meant to help somebody. Second, if you are meant to help somebody, then you need to see the what rather than the who. And I just want to let y'all know, we're not broke just because all of us are lazy or don't have a business or don't know nothing about investments. They have gates, rules, policies that even with the education and you try to do it, they still will keep you out. So get the education, but also understand That's not what's going to get you to wealth. Many black people that you see that have made it to certain levels of wealth, I just want to let you know they've compromised in some way, form, or fashion, and compromised in a way where they've almost lost themselves. Not all of them, but I say a majority of them. I've worked at jobs where I've seen black people who have decided, I'm not going to say nothing about that. Because what you got to understand is something that I had to realize. When you stand for what's right, when you refuse to not be who you are, I tell people all the time, I'm unapologetically me. And a part of being unapologetically me is being unapologetically black. So because I know people are uncomfortable around black people for not even like me acting ignorant or anything, just me being a black man, that doesn't mean I'm going to dumb down who I am to make them feel comfortable. No, they're going to find a way to get comfortable. They're going to deal with that issue in themselves. And that's how it's going to happen, because I'm not changing. But there are many black people who will not do that. They will change. They will change to the point where when it comes to discussions like this, like what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about, when it comes to discussions like this, they will join in with what others are saying. Black people are just illiterate. Black people are ignorant. Black people don't want to do better. Or if I hear that one more time, they don't want to do better. They don't want this. Black people always got something to say, like it's always racism. It's not racism, it's black people. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I've sat in rooms. I was at a job. Well, they were talking about drugs and drinking. And a black person brought up and said the Black Panthers were nothing but drunkards and weed smokers. So many words. And he was talking to Mexicans and white people. And I try not to speak up all the time if it's nothing that's not real. But that time I said, you're not going down the Black Panthers while I'm sitting here. They were not drunkards and weed smokers. He was like, well, some of them did. I said, but that don't mean they were all drunkards and weed smokers. You're not going to make it look like they were just a bunch of drunks and drug addicts, because I see what you're trying to do. And I said, I'll leave it at that. I said, but you're not going to do that while I'm sitting here. I'll speak up every time. And that's just one instance where I've had to do something like that, or where I've heard something similar, not as important or as stringent, but I've heard those things. So we just got to be careful, man. I'm sorry. I know the video went a little bit longer. I do apologize that I'm in the bed. I'm not feeling the best. Y'all just don't know. I actually went to work today and I left because I was not feeling good. But yeah, I was just sitting here, started doing some research, and I have to consistently do that to make sure the higher that I go in myself, that I don't start looking down on people who are probably where I was, and understand the mindset that I had when I was there. It wasn't because I wanted to be there. I wasn't broke because I wanted to be there. I wasn't in any type of situations because I wanted to be there. I didn't know how to get out. And nobody around me in my immediate circle knew how to get out, because we all were born into certain things. We all were born into this world. I just didn't know how to get out. And it wasn't because I didn't want to know how to get out. And I think that's the majority of black people that are in situations. I'm from the west side of Chicago, the Austin neighborhood. North Austin and South Austin is where I've resided. I went to Austin High School. And there are many things. I've seen my neighborhood go down, and I've paid attention because I worked in downtown Chicago. And I know how downtown's fingers have reached my neighborhood and caused it to fall apart. I've seen how the media uses different things. Chicago is still being branded as one of the most violent cities in the country, when it's not even one of the top 10 violent cities in the country. Chicago's crime rate has dropped again for the third year in a row it's dropped. But yet and still being called Chirac. Y'all don't listen to the media, man. All right, I'm finna go get some more rest. Probably get some. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.